With every winter map that you may see out there, I always say be skeptical, be very skeptical, especially when it comes to snow amounts. But in this video, we're going to look at some of the new data that's coming in that's trying to show some big snowstorms. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. We're going to talk about the big connections that are happening across the globe, look back at the past a little bit. We're also going to look long range, compare some of the snow that's across North America right now, maybe the last year or two, and what that looks like. And we will dig into some of the details of the forecast in the short and mid-range. I do want to start with this operational run of the European that ran overnight. Okay, so here's the deal. Do not get tied up on a long-range operational run. This is what it looked like 12 hours ago. Okay, if you take it all the way to the end of the range, people want to grab these screenshots and say, here comes the big snow. Not necessarily. However, when I look at forecasting, especially long range, I want to see the signals. And to me, the signals are for more snow, more cold heading into December. Will this flip back to a warm pattern as we head through December? Yeah, I think it's going to. I do. I don't think the cold's going to hit and it's going to last forever all through the winter. I just don't see that. But the WPO is going strongly negative. That's the Western Pacific Oscillation. And, I give credit to where credit's due. I was listening to some things from Joe Bastardi, who's been talking about this idea of, looking back at what's happening with the Madden-Julian Oscillation, what's happening with this sudden stratospheric warming that's happening right now. There are some echoes of 1983 and 1989. I'd go a little bit further and say, well, if you look back at the El Nino, La Nina years in the past, we're entering a weak La Nina year right now. And, I think when you end up with these types of years, you don't have a strong signal climatologically how the winter's going to shape out. It's one of the problems, I think, but let's dig into this. The point is, here's how I feel this morning. I was thinking about this, and some of those of you who may be physicians, doctors, weather forecasting isn't exact. Maybe you've dealt with medical issues, and you go to the physicians, and they say, we don't really know what's wrong, but we have some symptoms. We have some diagnostics that we're seeing. That's what we're seeing in the weather world today. I think a lot of times people think, oh, we know exactly what it's going to do. And when it changes, what happened? Well, the models weren't picking up on something. We missed something. The symptom wasn't quite there. We're seeing some of the strong symptoms today. That's what I'm saying to indicate that these snowstorms are on the table. Again, the WPO going negative. Now, I don't know if you can see the dates. There we go. At the bottom of the screen here, this takes us pretty far out in time. This takes us all the way through December, and it stays fairly negative. Then it goes strongly positive. For my friends along the East Coast, I don't know that this is a cold pattern. Here's what I'm talking about. The NAO, relatively neutral to positive. Okay? This kind of lines up with what the Climate Prediction Center has been showing with a relatively warmer setup heading into December right along the coast. Does that mean we won't get some cold blast? No, I don't think it does. But I just feel like this is going to be the cold area, and your battle zones, I've not changed, will be somewhere like this. You'll probably get your occasional storm into the northeast. This just doesn't look like a southern snowstorm track to me as we head into December. Take a look at your temperature departures. This is this right here, this map is the European extended control. So we're going to take it into December. This is the 7-day averages and their departures prior to the date that you see above me. So some cold air moving down into the Rockies. This is an interesting look too. I think it's going to get really cold and snowy out here. And the European AI has been doing something the last couple of runs. It's been trying to push some real cold into Texas. It's kind of backed off on that a little bit today. But when you look long range, and which is what we're doing here, this is what the European extended weeklies are showing heading into mid-December and late December. You see this map, and you go back to this, 1983, there's some similarities. I think the difference would be maybe the deep south, right? So it was cold all up and down. Even the East Coast got some shots of cold that year. But overall, still, I think December is a cold month. Now, what happens after December? Okay, now we're looking at the control all the way to the end of the month. This kind of makes sense to me. Now, keep in mind, you're also entering January, a period of the coldest time of year, right? So slightly above average. What does that look like in January? Well, usually not too warm, but I do think you're going to reverse the pattern heading into the end of the month into January. Here's where your snow was last year. Some of you may remember the snow that was on the ground on the 21st. It looked like Chicago, South Bend. We had a little stripe of snow going here, but I want you to look here in the southeast Canada. last year versus this year. So there's certainly a little more snow. Another thing, too, I'd argue we had a little more snow here in the west last year across Alberta and Saskatchewan. That right there, guys, would support that cold air as it moves south. But if you look at the models, if you look at where the snow is going to be over the upcoming weeks, I think we build on this snowpack and you start to get progressively colder. Someone said, yeah, it's not rocket science. We're going to get cold in December. Not always. And you don't always see this type of setup with the WPO going strongly negative. All right. Let's look at the snow totals. Let's take you through the next week or so. And I want to zoom in on this because this is an operational run. Take this with a grain of salt. Throw it in the trash if you want. But I want to talk to you about what I feel confident about. I don't know about this snow up here into the UP and parts of Wisconsin, but look what happens as our cold front moves through and we get toward the Thanksgiving time frame, Black Friday into Saturday. We could be dealing with some significant lake effect snow downwind of Lake Erie, downwind of Ontario, even Lake Michigan, trying to pick up on some of that into the UP, and also here in the parts of southern Ontario off of Lake Huron. But I'm going to push this out really far, okay? Please, do not hang up on this. You said it was going to come a snowstorm. I did not. The European is hinting at these big storms, and look at that. This is what you're showing as we head toward the 5th and the 6th. Now, this is a weird setup, too. I'll show you in just a minute. It's more of an overrunning event with ice and snow into parts of the Northeast. I don't know. You go back to yesterday's run, and yeah, you're going to have a totally different story. So today's run a lot stronger with snow. Let's go back into the plains. This is where it was an incredible storm showing up yesterday. Some snow headed for Colorado over the next couple of days. Again, this is taking you through the 24th, so this looks pretty healthy to me. And then as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday, a stripe of snow starts to drop out of the Dakotas into parts of Minnesota. I think this is going to happen. Now, how far south it goes, I don't know. It's been trending a little bit further south, and I'd argue maybe a little bit heavier too, with this low getting a little bit stronger on the European, putting some snow here into the UP, the arrowhead of Minnesota. I don't know. It doesn't look like Chicago. It's headed your way, but you're going to turn a little bit colder behind this. And then look, here is where the European goes heading into the following week. Trying to put a big storm. I mean, this storm is looking super impressive that the European is picking up on with another one. So you got to look at this and go, holy cow, that's crazy. Because when you looked at yesterday's runs, I'm not getting hung up on where that snow stripe is, but it's there, right? You've got your storm showing up, and across the west too. And we're going to dig into some more details and these maps and what's creating these snow maps that we're showing you. There goes your snow really expanding out into the plains, but what you're noticing, maybe not as much snow here into the southwest. Let's look at the map, by the way. This is the operational European from last night. If you're watching this video, by the way, if you catch it live, welcome to the channel. And if you're catching it on a playback, if you missed any of the live streams, you can always watch them back at any time. And if you're brand new, I hope you'll subscribe. Helps the channel. We're closing in on 40,000 subscribers. So thanks to all of you. Thousands of you have subscribed over just the last couple of weeks. So if you like tracking winter, come on back. If you're brand new, I used to forecast this every day. I love the challenge of forecasting winter. It's the greatest thing. I enjoy it so much. And I think it's like diagnosing what's going on. And again, we look at those big signals. If you missed it, you can go back to the beginning. They're there. All right, let's talk about where it's going to be warm this week. It's going to rain. A lot of rain, too, maybe across parts of the south. And then that moves east into the Ohio Valley, into the Mid-South, and then eventually into the southern Appalachians. Here comes the cold. And by the way, I'm going to back this up. We're not going to dig into every single region. We usually do that. We've kind of went long on this video today, so I'm going to wrap it pretty quickly. But look at the snow falling back here into the Canadian Rockies. Some of that sliding east. Calgary, maybe some snow out of this, and then it drops into North Dakota, eastern Montana, and then this slides east. There comes that low. It's a little bit stronger today. Okay, a little more, I guess, a negative tilt to this trough back to the west. So with that little bit of dig, you get a little more snow on the northern side of that. It's interesting to see that happening on Tuesday, heading into Wednesday for the Arrowhead. We've talked about that into parts of Ontario as this ramps up. Here comes the cold air behind this. So if your low is here, your front's going to be probably something like this. A decent warm front. Terrible drawing, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's going to turn a little bit colder behind this for sure, and some snow showers around the Great Lakes. And then we turn the lake effect snow machine on heading into Thanksgiving Day. The cold starts to rush all the way into the south. Temperatures, yeah, they're going to be chilly. Not like crazy cold, but definitely below average. And you can see your weather pattern set up like this. Decent low headed towards the Hudson. Now our winds also start to turn a little more westerly off the lake, so the lake effect starts to pick up. And this, my friends, to me, this is when it gets really interesting, right? So now you've got some Arctic air starting to lurk, if you will. One heck of a high showing up into parts of Western Canada, dropping south along the face of the Rockies. The European AI, I'd say over the last 3, 4, 5 days, has been so aggressive in this cold, and it may be sniffing something out. I believe it very well could be. And this is the operational European run, which is also saying it's interacting with that cold and showing something really funky. But look at the snow starting to spread across the Rockies. This is going to drop your snow levels down a pretty decent trough. And the European almost wants to cut this low off across the Southwest. Everything about this looks weird to me. Okay. And it's, again, you're getting in that 230-hour time frame. You're pretty far out. You're hitting toward the 1st of December. But look at that. That's interesting. Now, I'm going to go back to yesterday's run. You've got an ice storm here across the southern plains with this type of setup. Yesterday, not so much. But what you do notice, right, it's the Arctic air that's in place. And it's something sliding around the base of that Arctic air and forming a storm or some type of system that ramps up. That's what I'm paying more attention to today. And now I think the confidence continues to grow on that. It's one of the reasons I'm going live today. I'm just doing some analysis here this morning. Thought, hey, you might want to watch. So if you're watching this on playback, welcome. So I hope it's helpful for you and you enjoy it. If you made it this far, it means you should subscribe anyway. All right, let's continue this out. Look at this. This is impressive looking. I'm not going to latch onto an ice storm across the southern plains. And now you've got a snowstorm building from Kansas City to Chicago. Big storm. Mercy. Okay, and this would also put some heavy snow into the Northeast. Again, it's the operational run. If you go back 12 hours ago, it's kind of there. And the idea that something is still showing up, to me, super impressive. And that's the end of the operational European run. More to come on that. I said I wasn't going to dive into the west or the any rail, but I do want to look at something that's happening here and also a little bit further to the east. Look at the snow that's falling across the Four Corners states. That will happen into parts of Colorado, a little more snow. And then there's that snow streak that's going to dive out across the prairies into the Dakotas as we head into the upcoming week. And then more snow across the Pacific Northwest, too, as we head towards the upcoming week as well. There's the snow totals across the Rockies down into the southern Rockies. And again, out here, more snow is going to be falling over the coming days. Here's that snow streak as it slides out across the prairies. It looks like it's going to go right along the U.S.-Canadian border with a couple of inches here. Some areas may see 6+. Pretty interesting to see that, huh? All right. I don't know. Maybe so. And then if you really want to just get nuts, let's take this way out. There's your big snows. Yeah, we'll see. There's a look at your temperatures heading into Sunday. I'm going to let this go because I want to show you the cold that's coming. We've showed you the below average temperatures. How cold are we talking? Well, this is the GFS, and it's a little bit of a different look. You can see that cold sliding down. There's your single digits and your below zero temperature showing up around the 1st across the Dakotas at night anyway, and highs in the single digits. Both global models have the cold moving south, and boy, the GFS is just doing crazy things. And I don't even want to show you the GFS today. It's got a hurricane and a snowstorm at the same time at the end of its run. Yeah, it's whacked out. Don't know what's going on there. Here's the European, a little bit closer into the central states, that rain moving east. There goes the snow towards the Great Lakes. We've already kind of hit on that. And then your southern plains madness that tries to get going on the European there. I just say watch the time period, guys. Watch the time period as we head through the next couple of days. You want to see the temperatures here across the central U.S.? Let's look at this, and I'll show you how that cold slides south as we get toward the end of the month. There's a look at, what is this now? Heading into Monday and Tuesday. There comes a decent shot of cold as we approach Thanksgiving. By Friday and Saturday, some warmer weather at least on the way, but there comes the real Arctic air around the 1st and the 2nd. Diving into Texas. At least the European has been showing that, and now you're talking about below freezing temperatures dropping pretty far south. That's early, right, for this time of year for sure. Further to the east, some rain and light snow heading into Sunday across the Northeast. Otherwise, high pressure starts to really build in, and then here comes the rain picking up. We've talked about that. This moves toward the Great Lakes. Low pressure spinning by. There comes the lake effect. A little bit of a closer look here. You can see it picking up off the lakes. Your trajectory is really spinning like this as you're low. shifts, you'll see that change a little bit to be a little bit more westerly, I think, as we head towards Thursday and Friday. That shuts down, low pressure forms, and then again, what happens with this system and then what happens with the next? And the European says, look out for the Northeast. All right, there's a quick update. Boy, if you made it this far, you really are a weather geek like me. Hope you'll come back and subscribe if you're a new viewer, if you're a casual viewer. If you're an OG, we talk about you all the time. Welcome.